doing this morning?
I am good. How are you? How's your spring, summer going?
Good, good.
Oh, nice.
Ready for Mother's Day?
Yeah, I am. Hi, Gil, good to see you. Thank you for coming and being here. I know you were traveling, doing the traveling back and forth.
I know.
I enjoyed this one all. I enjoyed it.
Good, 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 good. Well, I'm glad. I know we only get you 1 week.
I spend as much time as I can. My heart is even when I'm not here.
I'm glad to hear it. But sometimes I feel like I have a greater communicative point to drive the most. Good morning, how are you? I really do.
Okay, how are you, sir?
Good morning, how are you? I really do. I want to see what people are experiencing. Yeah. Eduardo, how are you?
Good to see you too. How are you?
And sometimes it's not as bad as
Okay, I think we're ready.
but I make sure that like when we close off the part, I go
It's such a pleasure to see you.
then I go
Likewise, haven't seen you in a long, long time.
how those are shaped.
I guess you know.
Shopping, away midweek.
That's right. That's the way to do it. Whatever the occasion you're dressed for, right?
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to call the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority to order on May 9th, 2018 at 9 a.m. So we'll go to the first public comment. Mr. Tez.
No comments received.
Okay, thank you. Item number 3, adoption of minutes for the RMA board meeting of April 11th, 2018.
There's one correction that I'd like to add there. On item, I don't have it in front of me, it's the vote for the approval of the minutes. Within those minutes, it included board member Niemer in the vote. However, Mr. Niemer walked in right after the vote. So if we could just note that for the record. So everything else seems to be in line.
Very good, thank you. Open to a motion to approve with that correction. Thank you. I need a second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item number 3 is passed. Item number 4, presentation and discussion on the following items as they relate to the 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan. A, quarterly update on project progress, and B, monthly update on change orders approved to date. Mr. Taz?
Yes, ma'am. Raymond Tejas, Executive Director of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority. So today, as read into the record, we have 2 reports related to the Comprehensive Mobility Plan. David Head from our General Engineering Consultant team is going to lead us on both of these items. Just to clarify the distinction, the first item is the regular quarterly report that we receive, and item 4B then is the monthly update that we've recently begun using to identify any change orders that the executive director under the prior board resolution has approved in the prior month. So with that, I'll ask Mr. Head to begin with a quarterly update.
Okay, good morning. David Head with the GEC, and I'll be presenting the CRRMA presentation on El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan update. Got a lot of projects. Set up. So you've seen this before, but it's the agenda. We'll go through the map. Nothing has really changed on that part. The project listing, and then the project updates by whether they're design, construction, or others. So this is the project map. We do not have any additions to it since I believe the last time you've seen it. So you should be very familiar with it at this point. And so the projects in design, we have the Darrington Road project, the Mission Ridge 2 project, and the Pelicano Drive project. And then under construction, we have the National Historic Trail, the Vista del Sol project, the Old Waco Tanks project, East Lake 2, Rojas Drive, East Lake 1, and then projects funded by others is the Greg Edgemere project. So let's talk about the design first. The Darrington Road project, as you'll remember, it's between Pelicano and East Lake Boulevard. It's a very busy road out there. And you can see the red arrow there is where it's located. So to date, you can see what's been invoiced by the designer, and we have an amendment 2 that's pending board approval, which is the Pelicano intersection and a drainage redesign. And what those are is at the Pelicano intersection, we're doing the design project for Pelicano and for Darrington Road, but Darrington Road is most likely going to be built first. And so it was thought that let's go ahead and do the full build out for that so that we don't have to do that under the Pelicano Drive. And so we're going to go ahead and redo that intersection so that we've got the full build out. We won't have to come back later and do something, tear out. So with that, it's that. And then the drainage redesign is the road is, or that whole area is exploding with development. And so a lot of the drainage has started to shift a little bit. And so there was some redesign that we've asked them to go back and accommodate so that we can accommodate all the new latest development through the area. Because when we started this project, there was pretty much nothing on one side of the road and some things on the other side. Now you look at it, it's almost fully built out. So we've had to go back and redo some of that. But that's that. And then we're at 95% PS&E. I believe once we do this amendment, we should be ready for construction or ready to let at that point. So be at 100% submittal. The Pelicano Drive is the next one, and this one's from 375 over to Charrington Road, and that one has quite a few things going on with it. So you can see what we've invoiced to date, or what the designer has invoiced to date, and then we're at 60% schematic and 30% design. So what that means is in the schematic phase, we've got to go through the environmental process for this, and we've got to acquire some right-of-way. So we're trying to get all those things set. There's a pond, or several ponds that we need to acquire for this. We think we've got most of them, but we have to go through the environmental process for all of this. And then we're at 30% design, so we've started on the design because it's got a very aggressive schedule to get it out in the spring of 2019. Okay, so let's talk about the projects in construction at this point. The first one up is the National Historic Trail, and as you'll remember, it goes all the way from the New Mexico-Texas state line all the way down to Chicken Ranch Road south there. It's a very fast-moving project. We just started the construction last month. The invoice to date from the contractor is for the signs, the posts, stubs, those sorts of things that he acquired for the project. We've started placing the foundations and signs. In fact, if you go out there now, you'll see some of those signs. And the contractor started up at Anthony, and the state line is moving south. So these are the signs you'll see along the route if you would like to drive it. These will be erected all the way through it that guide you through the historic trail or the historic route. Excuse me. And also, we've put out 55 sound foundations were installed. Right now, I think we're up to about 100, and they started putting the signs in. So I think we will be fairly close to through, maybe by, or I know we'll be through by the next update on this thing. But it's a fast-moving project. There was a little over 100 signs, but they will get put up fairly quickly. The next project in construction is the Vista del Sol project, and this one is over at Loop 375 to Charrington, and we've been doing a lot of underground work on that one. So you can see what's been invoiced from the contractor, and we're at 16% complete. We're working on the installation of the storm sewer and the El Paso water utility main. So there was El Paso water utility work in here along with the county work. So the phase 1 sanitary sewer, this is a picture of it. It's been completed, and they're moving on to doing the water main installation and the storm sewer, I believe. So this project is moving along, and this is just a picture of the water main installation. Then also, this is the new temporary detour from Paseo del Norte to Addison Street. And what this does is the local traffic, that portion of the road is closed to through traffic, and so that was the detour that needed to be put in to move those people around. The next project is the Old Waco Tanks Road project, and it is south of I-10. It's now called the Nuevo Waco Tanks Road. And if you'll remember, Socorro passed a resolution, I believe, that was renaming it to Nuevo Waco Tanks Road. And you can see what we've been invoiced to date from the contractor. We're at 95%, and we're working on cleanup, punch list, the TxDOT oversight reviews. Some other entities need to buy off on certain aspects of the project. We're getting those approvals and should be opening this thing up. So this is the new signs. It's a long name, so you can see how the sign got a lot bigger. We had to move the traffic signals over in certain areas, but it's a long name, a little bit longer than what I'm used to seeing on some things. And this is just looking south along it. There's minimal landscaping, but it's all rock, and there are some plants, but most of it is rock and aggregate out there, boulders. This is the new intersection there at Nuevo Waco Tanks and at North Loop with the signals and everything in. So the next project is the East Lake Phase 2 project, and that one is butting up against the East Lake Phase 1 project, but basically from Darrington down to Horizon Boulevard, as you'll remember. You see what's been invoiced to date. We're at 97% complete. We're working on punch list items, pending approvals for some testing, and the Texas Department of License Regulation formal acceptance of the project for ADA compliance. And there's some familiar faces here. This was the ribbon cutting back on April 11th out there. And this is just a picture of some of the first vehicles going down the East Lake Boulevard. And then this is the East Lake Boulevard at Horizon Boulevard intersection. It's a new, we put in the signal work for that as part of this project, and there's a hike and bike trail, I believe, that goes across it for the school and things down the road. And then this is the new intersection at Canazo Avenue and Eastlake Boulevard. Next project is Rojas Drive, which is from Bill Burnett over to Eastlake Boulevard. So you can see what's been invoiced to date from the contractor. Excuse me. The complete to date is 45%, a little bit more than that right now as we speak. We're working on phase 2A, the storm sewer, the concrete paving. Should be trying to finish that up, and various utility conflicts have been resolved. There's only one that remains, which is removal of electric, El Paso electric pole at the corner of Bill Burnett and Rojas, but that doesn't seem to be an issue right now.
Madam Chair.
Excuse me.
Mr. Smith, you have a question?
On that Rojas Drive extension there, you had the very significant drainage issues. Have those been resolved?
The drainage issues, yes, sir. In fact, you'll see in one of my slides where we've got the storm sewer moving through there, and we did a change order, I believe, which pushed some of that over into the adjoining arroyo. That was a requested change by the county. And so I think we've got all the drainage that's been addressed on this project.
Thank you.
So this is the paving along Phase 2A. Phase 2A is, if you remember, on the, I would call it the right side of the screen. That paving, we've completed all of that, and we've moved the traffic over to that side. Originally, we were on the left side of your screen with the traffic, and they were running on part of the existing and part of the new. And so we've flipped them over, and they're over on all the new construction right now, and we're just finishing up this last half of paving down on this side of things, which you're looking towards the west, towards Bill Burnett at this point. So they've been doing a lot of paving. In fact, I believe they paved this week, and they paved last week. So this picture is a little dated just because it was a couple weeks old. This is that storm sewer work we were talking about, and we've gotten up to the manhole, and I believe we've, if my memory serves me correct, talking to the project inspectors, I believe we've already made the connection that pushes this out into the arroyo to make the outfall. So. This is right at Rojas at Bill Burnett. This was a phased intersection. This intersection gets a little busy with TxDOT behind it and some of the other businesses. But what you're looking at is in the foreground, you can see the new concrete paving we've done, and the traffic was running over on the existing Bill Burnett and then moving across. And so as of this week, we have now flipped that so that they're running on the new concrete, and we're finishing up this phase. We'll put in that little piece of concrete there at Bill Burnett, and then that should finish up that intersection as far as paving goes. Eastlake Phase 1 is the new kid on the block, so to speak. It's we just started this project. And as you remember, it's from I-10 up to Pelicano. So we let the project back in January 11, 2018. The construction schedule is for 18 months, and we held the pre-construction meeting on April 17th. So we started this Monday, May 7th, putting out the signs, putting up the bulletin boards, getting ready to do the traffic switch, which the first phase is basically what you're going to see is the northbound side of Rojas to Darrington, we're going to tear that up. So everybody that's coming down south, we're going to put all the traffic over on that southbound side from approximately Rojas up to Darrington. So down at I-10, you'll have both sides, but up towards Rojas is where we do the first phase shift and move everybody over. So they're preparing to get that underway. Then the last project is the Greg Edgemere Extension Project, and this is done by I believe the developer for the county. And that's way up there at the top. It connects Edgemere to Greg Road. So, excuse me. So right now they're working on subgrade base and paving out there. And so let me just show you some pictures. So this is right in front of the IDEA Edgemere School. I think they've paved. Last time I showed you this, they hadn't done any of that paving, but now they've put the paving on one side. They're working on the other side at this point. Excuse me, and doing the curb and gutter and all the necessary there. It seems like they're just kind of moving from one end of the project, the west end, towards the east end. This is a new turnaround. Excuse me, and it's at Edgemere, and that's actually supposed to be Tim Floyd, not Vista del Este. It's my fault there, but it's the new turnaround about in the middle of the project, which connects the two, and you can see they're working on that, putting in the base and subgrade things. And then this is the other side of that, looking back towards the west, and this is Greg Road. It looks like they've done some. I know they've done the underground for this, but it looks like they've done some of the concrete curb and gutter and those things, but I think they're concentrating, it looks like, up at the turnaround. But with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Head. Any questions for David or comments?
I just have one, on the Nuevo Waco Tanks Road, is that, everybody happy with that? Is it smooth and all that stuff work out okay?
I believe so. I mean, it's smoother than I think the last time you were out there. And so we're working through any of the issues that have come up and trying to get all the entities to do their approvals, like the ADA and those things.
If I could chime in on that one, that one includes federal funding. So TxDOT has the federal oversight for that one. So right now, one of the things that we're doing, as mentioned by Mr. Head, is going through the process with TxDOT to have them do their final review. They have identified a list of punch list items that they'd like rectified. So we're walking through that process with them now. Now, what we're talking about doing internally is potentially opening it up before we finish that process, because it looks like it might take a little bit longer than we'd like, and we're obviously getting a lot of calls from the public down there. They'd like to see the road open, and we're only out there doing punch list style items. So it's items like raising a sign a couple of inches, that sort of thing. So it's not major construction activity. So they're anxious to get to use that roadway. So we may do an early opening, and then finish the punch list items and work with TxDOT to complete that process. So, but I'll keep you posted of that.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Nina?
this also pertains to Nuevo Waco tanks. And just a general question, on medians, when you fill those with aggregate, that's permeable, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so how do you manage vegetation? How do you manage weeds?
Well, the median does have, where you saw the rock aggregate and those things, those do have a weed barrier underneath them, and then they come in and put the aggregate on top. So
it's a
you'll have
permeable
Yes,
weed
sir.
barrier?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the next, you're on again for B, 4B, for our change orders.
David Head with the GEC, and this is the 2013 El Paso CMP recent change orders. So we'll go through those. So this was your policy, as I understand it, which the executive director can approve change orders up to including $100,000, and then the rest need to come to the board for approval, the ones over $100,000. So with that, I believe we've got 2 projects with a couple of change orders. So the first one is the old Waco Tanks project. I don't know if I should change that to Nuevo Waco Tanks or old Waco Tanks, but I'm still kind of using the old one there. But on that project, these are the 1 through 7 are the ones that have been approved or they were deleted for whatever reason, and so you can see that subtotal there. And then 8 through 10 were already approved before that, or I guess, well, 8 through 10 and 13 were approved in prior board meetings. And so you've got 11 and 12 that are still pending. We're still working on getting all that back from the contractor as far as what we need to process that. And then the one that I wanted to talk to you about is the number 14, the striping surface preparation. That was approved. It was for $26,857.92. And what that was is the plans left out the striping surface preparation. So when you go in and do striping, you need to clean it off, and I believe there's a primer that's put down before you put the stripe on. So that was left out of the plan. So we needed to add that in, and then there was some additional striping that was not shown in the plans that was necessary for the project. So we added that in also. So that's the gist of this change order. So you can see that your total approved to date is $295,351.44. And that's approximately 3.78% of the total. And then the second change order is for the Vista del Sol Drive project. Excuse me. So change orders 1 through 4 were previously approved, and then the orange ones are always the ones that are going back to the board so that you can see those. And number 5 is for $71,627.80. And what this was is in the plans, there was supposed to be some construction easements along the sides so that we could use that for the area to work, and those were not done till a little bit later. And so to keep this project moving, we worked with the contractor, and he couldn't move to the side. This, if you'll remember, this is all the underground work that's going on. And so when he was excavating, he would have to take it to the end over on the road, and then haul it to a place, stockpile it, and then bring it back when he was backfilling. Because from the inception, the way it was planned to be done is we would have a construction easement, and then he could just put the dirt to the side. He wouldn't have to move it twice, and then he could backfill with it. So this was the additional equipment needed to do that work. So those were the additional costs. And so total approved on that, on those change orders, is $141,415.24 to date. And it's 3.9% of the total project. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions from Mr. Head?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Neeler?
Regarding change orders, you mentioned there was one for striping and surface prep left out of, I understood you to say left out of the bid. Or was it the bidding documents? And I guess the distinction is who forgot?
Well, it was left out of the plan, so the designer.
Left out of the plan, okay, so the contractor, it's not his fault.
No, sir.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chase, we don't have to take action on this, it's just a report
That's correct.
for change orders. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Head? Mr.
I
Smith?
got one question, just for curiosity. The Vista del Sol, extension, doesn't that run into that, private road out there? What do they call it? Job Road or something like that? Doesn't that connect to that where all the controversy is?
I don't believe so. This goes up to Charrington, this project. And
Can you
so
pull up
there's
the map?
nothing past,
Do you want to pull up the map?
oh, okay, good idea. Oops. So right now, the way, unless something has changed, it goes out to Charrington, and that's where we stop our project, is right at Charrington. Job Road,
I think, if I remember correctly, if you continued straight on Vista del Sol past where the green is, isn't that where that runs into, that road, that private road? I'm just curious, because there's a lot of controversy about that and safety issues out there. I wondered what our connection was to that intersection.
You know, I'm not certain right now, but we can look into it and I'll get back to you.
It's no big, it's just curiosity.
I have a question.
Mr. Fernandez.
On number 5, Vista del Sol, it said additional equipment needed. That's a little confusing. Did we buy equipment or?
no, what it was is that if we had the construction easements on the side, then he could just excavate and pile the dirt, and then he would just put it back in the hole. And with this one, the way I understand it is, he had to take the material to the back end of the project, and then he would put it in dump trucks, and then truck it to a place where he could stockpile it. And then he would have to pick it up from there and bring it back, so that handling is the additional equipment to do that.
And just for the record, this is because this change order was over the $50,000 threshold that the board resolution authorizes. This information was passed to you once the change order was signed. This one was a little bit unique because of what Mr. Head was describing, but really what ultimately drove this is that there were some right-of-way acquisition issues on the county side while they were trying to acquire the land where this material was intended to be stockpiled. That took longer than anyone anticipated, which is what gave rise to the additional equipment required to pick it up, move it, stockpile it for a bit, and then bring it back. That's really ultimately what happened.
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Head. Let's see. Raymond, we have Commissioner Haggerty here.
Certainly. If you'd like to move that item up, it'd be a motion from the board to move item 7.
Just recommending if we could have a motion to move item number 7. I know Commissioner Haggerty would like to make some comments.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We'll move item number 7 up next. So let me read that. So, presentation, discussion, and action on a board resolution regarding potential RMA roles, responsibilities, or sponsorship of the Borderland Expressway project, which includes the Northeast Parkway. Mr. Tez.
Thank you. So I have a brief PowerPoint for you that I'll run through. As you may recall, last month at the board meeting, we had TxDOT come and present the latest update on the Northeast Parkway and the Borderland Expressway project. During that discussion, we began talking about sponsorship for the project, and I committed to coming back to you this month with more information about what sponsorship entails and what our next move could be. So that's what this is intended to cover. So stop me along the way, but this is a fairly brief PowerPoint. You've been provided this as part of your backup, so nothing has changed. We're going to talk about the project descriptions, the project status, the project partners, the sponsor discussion, and then there will be a requested board action at the back end, which includes a board resolution. So description, you may recall the Northeast Parkway itself is what we've been talking about to date. The Northeast Parkway is new construction in the state of Texas that really jumps from 375 and heads up to the New Mexico state line. From there, though, the project continues, and as the RMA has been meeting with TxDOT, with New Mexico DOT, with other interested parties, stakeholders really for this project, as almost an ad hoc coalition, this group has decided that the project itself collectively should be referred to as the Borderland Expressway Project. The Texas side of that project then would be known as the Northeast Parkway, which is what TxDOT is working on. The New Mexico activities, which include upgrades to New Mexico 213 and New Mexico 404, then would be the remainder of the Borderland Expressway project. So that's a little bit different than what we had discussed last year. As you may recall, in April of 2017, I came to the board, and the board authorized me to begin working with TxDOT and other project partners on trying to figure out how to move this project forward. At that time, we were talking about Northeast Parkway. Now we've expanded it a bit. And in truth, it's the same thing, but we've made it a little bit more clear, hopefully, with the descriptions. So that's the project description. Project status, TxDOT, and I'll breeze through this. This was discussed in more depth last month. TxDOT is managing the development of the Northeast Parkway. The environmental assessment is ongoing, and they're looking for approval in spring of 19. New Mexico DOT then is working on the New Mexico sections, which are specifically 213 and 404. And in fact, they've received certain funding authorizations from the El Paso MPO for improvements along those sections. And that leads to that final bullet there, which is that the Borderland Expressway has elements, of course, in Texas and New Mexico, and each of those have been incorporated into the latest Metropolitan Transportation Plan of the El Paso MPO. The project partner, so this is not an exhaustive list, but as you know, this project, and as we've discussed in depth, this project crosses multiple jurisdictions, whether it's municipalities in Texas into New Mexico, the state line, of course. There are military installations involved, so lots of different jurisdictions where this roadway crosses. So therefore, because of the complexity like that, it's going to require a number of partners. And here's a partial list, and this speaks to that ad hoc coalition that I referred to earlier. So Fort Bliss and the U.S. military has to be a partner with this in order for this to move forward, as does TxDOT, New Mexico DOT, the City of El Paso, the County of El Paso, Doña Ana County, El Paso Water, the MPO, and the RMA. And again, this is not an exhaustive list, but it speaks to the various partners that will be necessary to achieve this project. So this is really what we're here to talk about now, the project sponsor. There's been a lot of talk about the sponsor and how this project should be pursued. But we should talk about the term itself. The term is very generic. There are many definitions of project sponsor, and it really depends on the context and the specific usage. So when you think about a project, you could have the global view of the project sponsor, the entity that is pursuing the project, and that could be one use of the term project sponsor. However, when you break down a transportation project into its various elements, you could have a sponsor for each of those elements as well. So here is a bullet point list of the different areas a sponsor could come in and really take the lead on. And really, that's what we're talking about. A project sponsor is just a generic way of saying who's taking the lead on either the project as a whole or the project elements. So we're looking at different areas of the Borderland Expressway project, such as planning, finance, design, construction, operations and maintenance, applying for grants. You could manage the entire project. One very defined use of the term project sponsor is with the El Paso MPO process. So that is a clearly defined term. Anyhow, the point of this slide is really to say that the term project sponsor is generic, and it really depends on what you're looking to do. So when we're talking about the RMA serving as a project sponsor, we have served as project sponsor in almost all of these areas. We've designed State Spur 1966, so we could be termed as the sponsor for design on that particular project. We financed State Spur 601. So again, we've served at many of the different sponsor roles and examples that you see here. So at this point, with the Borderland Expressway project, there are many unknowns. In fact, the coalition to date has really started to tackle where do we move next? How do we actually progress this project? One of the first tasks that the coalition has identified is developing a memorandum of understanding. The idea there would be that all of the project partners come together and identify the different roles, the different tasks that need to be developed or need to be completed for this project to move forward, and then begin assigning entities to those individual tasks. So again, like on the prior slide, we're talking about who's going to finance it, how does that work? In a project as large as this, you're going to have multiple funding sources. So how will those funding sources, what will the funding sources be? What entities will be responsible for each of those, just by way of example. So lots of different tasks need to get done to move this project forward. We, from the coalition side, believe that the first step is developing an MOU to memorialize the entity support. So we would have this signed document, and this is a tried and true practice, I should mention. With the 2008 El Paso Comprehensive Mobility Plan, TxDOT, the RMA, the City of El Paso, Sun Metro, and the El Paso Metropolitan Planning Organization used an MOU at the outset to agree on what the plan would be and to agree on certain responsibilities of the party. So this, I think, makes sense, and it certainly worked well for us in 2008. So we're looking to replicate that process here. You'd also be able to use that MOU when you're seeking grants as evidence of support throughout the region as well. So it does a number of things. It really evidences that support to the public, and especially the granting entities where you're seeking funds from. But then it also allows us as an internal exercise to identify which entity is responsible for which task. I've mentioned the coalition a couple of times. In preliminary discussions with that group has identified the RMA as a potential project sponsor in the various roles because of the unique abilities inherent to RMAs, and specifically with a project like this where you're going to have multiple funding sources, you're going to have multiple jurisdictions involved, you're going to cross a state line. The Regional Mobility Authority is really the only entity that I'm aware of that can do all of those things. We can operate, we can design, plan, construct in New Mexico as well as Texas. In the city of El Paso, outside the city into unincorporated portions of the county, we can do all those things that will be necessary for this particular project. So the coalition has identified the RMA as being valuable in this process. So as we've discussed, the next logical step for this particular project would be the development of an MOU. So what you're going to see before you today as a requested board action is authorization to grant the RMA staff to begin that process and really serve as the sponsor for the development of the MOU. And I think that's really important because, as I mentioned before, it does a number of things. While it's useful as we go and seek grants and are trying to prove that the region is supportive of the project, more importantly from my side is it forces everyone to the table to say, okay, what is your role going to be? What is the RMA's role going to be? And then we can have that more robust conversation. So that's really the intention behind this discussion. So this next slide then really talks about really kind of next steps. If the board authorizes the staff to begin that process to develop the MOU, all major next steps would come back to the board. So if, say for example, through the MOU process, and of course the MOU would have to come back to the board for authorization to execute as well, but if through that process the coalition thinks it makes sense for the RMA to become sponsor for financing, for example, or to submit the grant, the RMA staff couldn't take any of those actions without coming back to the board. So you would be heavily involved, and I would, of course, keep you posted as we progress. But it is a more formally, it's a way of formalizing the process and formalizing the pursuit of the project as well. So the staff would become the face of this, whereas currently it's a little more ad hoc. We've got several board members sitting at some of those meetings, so the RMA staff would now take over and begin to brief the staff, the board on a more regular basis. So I think we've touched on most of that, most of the rest of this slide. Oh, actually, a really good point on this second paragraph here is if the board determines or decides to authorize this action that's being requested, the responsibility and really the resources that would be devoted to this would be limited to RMA staff. So it's my time to do this. So there aren't any additional expenses or anything like that. It would be limited to staff time. So this is the requested board action. A board resolution to direct RMA staff to serve as the project sponsor on the development of a memorandum of understanding for the Borderland Expressway project, which will help to define the role of the RMA and the various project partners in the development of the project. That's what I'm seeking from you today.
Thank you, Mr. Tejas.
Yes, ma'am.
Discussion, questions? None.
I'd like to, yeah, go ahead, your turn.
Mr. Smith?
I was going to move to approve, but
Well,
go ahead.
I'd like to, I've kind of been sitting on the ledge watching this whole process go for a long time. First off, my compliments to Mr. Tejas. I mean, this is one of the most complicated things I've ever seen or been involved with, and having him with the help of all of the project partners. I see New Mexico DOT back there represented. I see the consultant for TxDOT. I see TxDOT, the county commissioners here. All these little different pieces that are out there have had this project, from my perspective, in what I classify as the too hard to do box for a long time. And putting sanity to the process and is absolutely amazing how this has all been put together. So my compliments to everybody involved in being able to create a structure that can be intelligently approached to determine what the final outcome is. So thank you.
Commissioner Haggerty, would you like to make some comments? I don't want to put you on a spot, but I think you have some interest in this one.
Politicians never refuse a chance to speak, right? My name is Andrew Haggerty. I'm the County Commissioner for Precinct 4, which represents both the northeast as well as the west sides. I want to make it known I'm not speaking on behalf of Commissioners Court because we have not spoken on this. This is just myself representing my constituents. This was one of the very first projects that was discussed to me over 3 years ago when I first got into office. And I was excited about it then, and I'm excited about it today. I think it would do wonders for El Paso. I think it would do wonders for my precinct. I think just last night, the fact that the Trans Mountain Road was closed for a long time because the truck was on fire is a good example that we need multiple options to make sure people have the ability to navigate this community. Again, I'm not representing the county, but if there's anything I can do to pledge my support to make this project work, I'm going to do everything in my power to do so. I think it's a fantastic plan. I think it's a fantastic growth for the community, and I think all parties will benefit from this. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it.
I have a question.
Mr.
Yeah.
Fernandez.
And maybe a little too early, a little premature, but do you have a rough idea of the timeline? Sources, uses of the funding?
You know, we really don't. Not yet. In fact, part of that MOU process that we're referring to, I intend to develop that initiative, obviously with the project partners. I mean, and incidentally, Mr. Smith, that's a really good point. I may have put this on paper, but this is the result of a lot of work from the project partners, HNTB on behalf of TxDOT, New Mexico DOT, and the rest. But I intend, as part of that MOU process, to work with those project partners to really try to sketch out a timeline. One of the first steps that one of the other initial first steps is to look at grant applications, and those, we've got some timelines for that, but in terms of the total project, we don't have a timeline established for that just yet.
Any other questions? Okay, so Mr. Parker, you have, okay, it's been a motion.
Second?
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so item number 7 is approved. Thank you very much. And thank you to all the partners. I know this is a project that's been talked about for many years, I think since I've been on the RMA board, so that's a long time ago. And so I think now it's shaping up, and this really creates the framework for it to really move forward. So thanks to everyone. Okay, we'll go back to agenda item number 5, discussion and action on board resolutions related to the modification of certain storm sewer designs necessary for the Darrington Road project from the 2013 El Paso County Comprehensive Mobility Plan. A, authorizing the chair to execute a third amendment to an interlocal agreement with the County of El Paso. And B, authorizing the executive director to execute a second amendment to work authorization number 2 with Hewlett Zollers. Mr. Test.
Thank you. So as read into the record, there are 2 specific items being requested here. The first one relates to the interlocal agreement with the County of El Paso. As a brief reminder, whenever the RMA pursues a project as part of the Comprehensive Mobility Plan utilizing VRF, vehicle registration fee funds, we have an interlocal with the County of El Paso, which grants us or authorizes us to pull those vehicle registration fee funds. We had a prior interlocal agreement which had been amended twice. This is the third amendment to increase the funding available to allow us to do item 5B, which is the actual engineering work. As Mr. Head touched on in item 4B, the monthly update on change orders for the Comprehensive Mobility Plan, these the changes here relate to the explosive growth out in this particular area. So it's the 2 items that Mr. Head mentioned. It's the storm sewer ponds, as well as the upgrading really of the Pelicano interchange to prepare for the Pelicano design and construction activity, which will come later. So that growth is really driving these additional changes. I think I saw another representative of the county, if you have any questions of them. Otherwise, this was requested by the county and has not yet been approved or taken to the Commissioner's Court, but it will be going to them next. Subject to your questions, and I would recommend approval of both items.
Any questions, Mr. Taz? No? I'll entertain a motion to, Mr. Parker. Oh, wait, thank you. A second?
Yes.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item number 5 A and B have been approved. So we'll go on to our presentation. So quarterly presentation and update on the El Paso streetcar and general engineering consulting team's use of local resources. Mr. Tez.
Thank you. So now we've got our regular streetcar quarterly update. We have Mr. Gil Gardner as part of our general engineering consultant team, and he's going to brief you on the progress of the streetcar.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Gil Gardner, the program manager and construction manager for the El Paso streetcar project. I'm really glad to be here. This is about my 7th or 8th quarterly meeting presentation. It won't be the last. We will have at least one more, but this is one. We're really pleased to do it today because we have so much to tell you in so little time. So bear with me here. The agenda that we're going to be talking about today is the progress summary, SBE, typical agenda that we're running through here. And then at the very end, I'll be glad to answer any questions as we sum up. The project summary, the progress summary, it's on budget and on schedule. The original contract sum was $61,102,602. We've had change orders to date of $9,235,350 for a total contract price of $70,737,952. To date has been completed and billed of $68,637,052. The last 2 items that will be done their contractor is working on right now, which is basically the completion of the OCS and then their integration testing. The infrastructure contract is 97% complete. And we broke it down into the various base bids. If you recall, the civil track, this is the MSF, and MSF and civil track work, that's the streetcar. And that's $53,493,67. Base bid 2, which was the wastewater replacement that we did for the project, was $922,002. That's all complete. The potable water replacement that we did for El Paso Water Utilities is complete. That was $3,196,570. Base bid 4 was CBD 4 for $2.4 million. It's also complete. All the work has been done on it except for the punch list items. Then we had the change orders of their rounded of $8,607,952 for the $68,637,000. The vehicle contract is 60% complete. The project SBE goal of 8% was when we'd set a goal of about a little over $5 million. To date, PD&T has used 19 SBE subcontractors from the local community, and they have completed $7.5 million of work to date, which we've way exceeded our initial goal of 8%. We're very pleased about that. The construction update, the MSF and downtown loop are complete. They're both handling vehicles. If anybody comes out here about 11 o'clock at night where they're testing the vehicle out when no traffic is here, you'll see the project team out there walking alongside the vehicle because it's not ready for primetime service. They're still testing it, but it's being done at night. They're working on the punch list items, and in fact, this afternoon, I'm going to get out of my suit, put on my boots, and we're going to have a field inspection for the downtown loop this afternoon, and getting it ready for turnover to the city. Cincinnati Street, the improvements in Cincinnati Street are nearly complete. We're still working on the landscaping and additional striping, but we hope to have that complete within the next few days or few weeks. They're completing the striping on Stanton and Oregon. This is mostly punch list and a few minor changes the city has asked. On the TPS, that's a picture of one of them right there, photo. All the TPSS units are complete. A1 and A2 have power. In fact, now all of the TPS units have power available. We're working with UTEP to put the nice wrought iron fence around TPSS1 to basically protect the students from it or protect it from the students. I don't know which yet. But it's being installed right now. We've installed all of the OCS poles, and 90% of the OCS wire has been installed on the uptown loop. Downtown loop is complete. The uptown loop, they hope to have it completed within the next couple of weeks. We've already transferred the maintenance facility over to the city of El Paso Sun Metro so they can move in. And in fact, they have already moved in the office. They're very happy. They've got, maybe 6 people on their staff now? Something like that, 6 people that they've done. What we've noticed over in the last few weeks, few months, is a real positive change in the enthusiasm of the city about getting there was a period of time there we were kind of not quite certain the city was ready for this, but they've obviously gotten into the game big time. They're very excited about it. They're putting their resources together. As we said, all of the underground and flat work is complete downtown. We began the vehicle testing on the downtown loop, which completed the acceleration, braking, and ride quality test. And we've actually already begun our systems integrated testing using the vehicle whenever we can, and have completed our clearance test, which is making certain the vehicle can clear all of the obstacles. The vehicle manufacturer is Brookville Equipment Corporation. Initial contract value was $18.794 million. We've got 2 contract amendments to date of totaling $266,976 for a current contract value of $19,061,241. They've invoiced to date about $11 million. Their invoicing is on milestones, so it's kind of hard to say percentage complete because once they reach a milestone, the payment's there. This is kind of off the record, or not off the record, but not in the slide. I've done several of these contracts and, working with vehicle manufacturers on contract. And we are pleasantly surprised to see that the amount and the percentage of change orders on this vehicle contract is such a low item. I mean, it's almost so low, it's kind of hard to put a percentage on it. Usually for vehicle contracts, you can sometimes expect change orders in the neighborhood of 10%. And so to have one this low here, and I don't see any additional change orders unless they're preference change orders as opposed to something, we have budget left or something like that. But they've done, the consultant firm doing the management of this has done an excellent job of maintaining control of the vehicle manufacturing.
And
4 of the 6 vehicles are at BC, are at the manufacturers for remanufacturing. They've delivered 2 of them today, Vehicle 1 and Vehicle 2. Both of them are testing. They virtually completed the testing for Vehicle 1. We're spending 3 nights this week doing the testing on Vehicle 2, so it should be ready here within the next week or so. Vehicles 3 is in final assembly. Vehicle 4, they're completing the installation. 5, they've done the prime code on it, and 6 is in assembly. So the re-railing equipment request was sent to BEC for a proposal, and we'll get a proposal from them. And the re-railing equipment is equipment they'd used is if the vehicle ever derailed, it's just a little equipment that allows it to put it back on the rail. And by the way, if these vehicles, because they operate the slow speed, it's not like a train wreck per se. It just slips off the rail. You come back in, you put it back on the rail, and it goes about its business. What did I do here?
Went off the rails.
Yeah. You'll have to pardon me. When you get my age, you get spastic. Yeah, I never carry a cup of coffee with my right hand. Anyway, the final testing on number 1, Brookville Equipment is finishing up the testing on number 1, and it should be finished. They've already completed their first operator training. The operation and maintenance manuals have been developed and underway. They're being reviewed right now. Now, this will all continue to occur through October of 2018 when that last vehicle is arrived. So it's not as if everybody's going home. We'll be seeing the vehicles come in over a period of time through October of 2018. What we're doing right now is working with Sun Metro to develop all the plans and submit them to TxDOT. And we had TxDOT SSO visit, what came in and inspected the site back in February. We received a final readiness review report from TxDOT. We met with TxDOT on the 1st of May, reviewed the report. We've had a couple of other meetings, including one this week with our Sun Metro staff and the consultant staff to determine what all needs to be done to make certain that we're ready, do our readiness review, and we get certification so we can start revenue service. The staff that's currently on board is the operations manager, safety training manager, maintenance manager, technician. They brought aboard an operations superintendent and 2 transit supervisors. So Carl Jackson, who is the operations manager, is putting his team together. He's very, very excited about it. He's looking forward to start working on this system. Another thing that we're doing is we're identifying the objectives that it's going to take to obtain the system safety certification. This is very, very important. It's both a federal regulation and a state regulation. So we cannot operate, or Sun Metro cannot operate the system until it has been certified by the state system safety officer, which is a division of TxDOT. And they're working closely with us. They've given us a list of all the materials and documentations we need. And so far, I think we're on track to get it done. Sun Metro does have a lot of work to do because much of that is in their operating procedures, their O&M plans, their training, their staffing. So they've got a tremendous amount of work to do. But they're working hard on it, and I'm pretty confident they're going to get it done within the time frame. We've already submitted 47 documents, and we probably have at least that many more to submit over the next few months. Now, as far as community involvement, we've had a very, very strong community involvement program since the inception of this project. And I think that community involvement project is one of the things that has really helped make this such a positive construction project. But right now we have begun transitioning the construction message over to the safety and the testing message. But we still have our project hotline. We're still delivering the bilingual flyers in the target area of any testing activities because we will closing down parts of the street and doing this. We've distributed push cards to all properties along the downtown loop because that's where we're working right now. So we want the people to know what we're doing down there. So it's very, very active. We're still managing the news media covering the arrival of streetcars 1506 and 1512, which came in. I'm sure you read it, saw it in the newspapers, television. Working cooperatively with the City of City of El Paso to complement their ceremonial activities. So we're working together on that as a team. And then having the ongoing logistical conversations regarding the streetcar road shows events that the city is putting together and developing at this time now. And if you recall, we've got a lot of the city's put up a lot of billboards showing coming in 2018 of the streetcar. A couple of buses have been painted, and striped to look exactly like the streetcar. Like I said, they're getting very, very excited about this. From the construction management, we received to date 574 submittals. And we've closed out 570. We've still got 4 that are being reviewed. This is primarily for the Cincinnati closing it out. We've received 445 RFIs to date and have closed them all out. So we're keeping up on our contract side of the construction management side. If you look there are 2 vehicles right there, and they're absolutely beautiful. And anyway, that's it. That's what I've got today. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Gardner? Thank you.
You're
It's
welcome.
always great to see you, Gil. We're
I
going to
have
miss
one
you. We're going to
question.
miss these reports.
Madam
Mr.
Chair,
Beamer.
one question. Streetcar numbers 1506 and 1512, and I'm real curious to know what the numbers mean.
You want to answer that, Lynn?
Certainly.
Okay, Richard.
Those numbers are the numbers that were originally given to them when they came to El Paso in the 50s.
Okay.
So we kept
Legacy.
those. Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm. Now they had, these vehicles were originally put together for San Diego, so they had different numbers in San Diego, but when they came here, these are the numbers that were assigned. If I could take a moment too, I'd like to touch on a couple of items. As Mr. Gardner mentioned, there is testing going on this week. Monday night to Tuesday morning, last night into this morning, and then tonight into tomorrow morning. All 3 nights, the newer vehicle, 1512, has been out testing. And tonight, there's a unique test going on where one vehicle actually tows the other vehicle, which should be interesting. So that's happening now.
And Raymond, are you going to that?
I
Did you
intend to,
decide?
yeah. I
Can't
think that's
resist.
unique enough. I do want to see that. Anyhow, so another really important point that Mr. Gardner touched on was that, as you know, the MSF, the maintenance and storage facility, has been turned over to the city already. So they are occupying it with their own staff. We've transferred the gas, water, electrical bills and all that sort of thing. So they have their facility now. What's next, though, and in fact, Mr. Gardner touched on this as well, is a walkthrough, a major walkthrough that's scheduled for this afternoon, where we walk with the city representatives as well as the contractor. We walk the downtown loop, and we begin identifying any remaining punch list items that need to get resolved before the city can begin to accept that. So that's a huge step that we're starting today, because we will begin turning over major infrastructure over to the city very soon. So I wanted to kind of highlight that one as well. Then the last thing I wanted to touch on was an item that I forgot, actually, honestly, to include in this PowerPoint that I meant to. In fact, I have to. It was a change order that I approved this past month, and it should have been in here just as we've done with the CMP. However, it's on the streetcar. It was change order number 32. It's for $20,675, and it's for 5 LED blank out signs. I'm going to send you an email after this meeting with backup and with photos as well, so that you have the information you need. But ultimately, what it is, if you drive up Stanton right now, because of the cycle track, there are these boxes that are located on each of the signalized intersections as you head northbound. Those boxes are intended to light up with a no right turn arrow in red when the cycle track has a green light. So it's a safety issue, obviously, for the cycle track. So when the cycle track has a green light, those boxes light up so vehicles traveling north cannot turn right across the cycle track. Well, what the designs originally had, when you were heading westbound at those same intersections, when the cycle track has a green light, there was a static sign that said no right turn on red ever, and it was static. However, operationally, it makes more sense to have a blank out sign, because it shuts down so people can turn right when the cycle track does not have a green, so you have less queuing and that sort of thing. So operationally, it makes a lot more sense, and it was requested by the City of El Paso Streets and Maintenance Division, and we agreed it makes a lot of sense. So that was a change order that I recently approved that, unfortunately, I'm sorry, I left out of this quarterly update. However, I'll get that information to you in an email today. And again, it was under the threshold, so the resolution authorized that.
Mr. Taser, we have a final accounting. I know we talked about going through and making sure that we spent all our funding, and I know we have a list of things
Yes,
we'd
ma'am.
like to do.
In
So at
fact-
some point, we're going to have that come back to the board or come to the board.
Yes, ma'am. So we have a number of change orders that we've been working on with the contractor for some time now. We've pushed it a couple of times, but I'm hopeful that we have it at next month's board meeting. Now, most of those change orders will be under the threshold, but I'll bring them to you anyway, because you need to see how all of that shakes out. So I'm hoping to have that for you in June.
Okay, thank you. Any
Yes,
other
ma'am.
questions, comments? Okay, thank you. All right, so Edgar, are you?
The final item we have for you then is the regular quarterly update on the use of general engineering consultant team resources. So today we have with us Ed Graffino from our general engineering consultant team, and he's going to brief you on this last quarter.
Right. Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. Ed Graffino with the GC. Could you get the PowerPoint? Thank you. This is the GC team resources. The agenda is we're looking at life-to-date labor data, and then also a graph presentation on the data, firm summary, and then questions. First is on the table on the if you look on the left side, it shows the years from 2009 to 2015. And for 2016 and 2017, it's shown on a quarterly manner. The next column is the a time frame. We are currently at quarter 36, which is the bottom from November 2017 to January 2018. The local labor, at this point, local labor is at 90%, which is $752,914.18. The next column is non-local labor, and for quarter 36, we're at 10% at total dollars of $86,068.09. This is the yearly average summary for 2017. If you look at the gold bar chart, or the gold bar, if you go to the left, for 2017, it's $3,538,879.26 as far as the local labor, and that includes quarters 33, 34, 35, and 36 for the year 2017. And if you look at the purple bar, it's non-local labor is at $367,024.29 for the year 2017. If you look at the line graph, that's for local labor, and we're at 90% as far as the line graph. They're at the very top, the gray line. 90% local as far as fiscal year, quarter 36 for the year 2017. And that dollar amount, as previously mentioned, was $752,914.18. If you look at the orange line or the red line, it's at that's life to date as far as local resources, and that's at 58%. This is the quarterly summary for quarter 36. The gold bar there for quarter 36, local is again $752,914.18. The purple bar is non-local at $86,068.09. And on the line graph there, we're at 90% as far as local firms and or local labor, and 10% on the purple bar for non-local labor. And finally, this is the firm summaries as far as all the firms involved with the GEC work, starting from 2009, as far as local and non-local. And that concludes my presentation. I'm open for any questions.
Any questions, comments? Go ahead, Mr.
Through the
Newberry.
chair, could you back up one slide?
Yes, sir.
When you put out a spreadsheet like that, what is expenses? What does that mean?
That's what we had a discussion this morning as far as as far as direct expenses, or is it other direct expenses as far as travel time or material in regards to pencils, pens, as far as other direct expenses.
So those are the expenses of the different contractors.
As far as the firms, as far as what?
As GEC, it's not your expenses related to
That's correct,
management.
as far as each individual firm.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Fino, I know looking at that, one of those slides that go back to 2009, I don't know, maybe the board, I'm not sure we need to look at, 9-year-old information, but maybe in your trend lines when you do your graph, I think that's okay, but that really makes it hard to read that, so maybe
Sure.
we wouldn't need to go back. I don't know if everyone needs to go back to 2009, but I think generally the trends are positive, and that's something I know the board has been very committed to make sure that we are using local resources and to have that reported and see that. I think that's very important, but I'm not sure, unless someone wants to see 9-year-old information, I'm not sure that's relative in that detail, the detail one. Maybe your graphs are okay because that's easy to read and we see the trend, but I think all that detail, I think we've talked about that before, that maybe that's too much. I mean, I appreciate all
Sure,
the
no,
work on that.
that's very doable. I mean,
but that's-
we can make any changes
Yeah.
requested.
So maybe you can work with Mr. Tejas and
Sure.
see if we can come up with something that's little, one that's easier to read. And
Yes, ma'am.
I think the graphs are okay, but I think
Okay,
that's just
sure.
old data. Okay. Any comments? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fino.
right, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I think that's it for business today. So if we could have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, and moved and
Second.
seconded. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we are adjourned, the Regional Mobility Authority is adjourned at 10:17 on May 9th, 2018. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.